Hi, I'm James Johnson, founder and CEO coach, and this is the Peer Effect podcast, where you'll learn how to 10x your business. I've always been fascinated in the idea of pivoting, like when to know and how to do it. And so I thought I'd invite Gaurav Bhattacharya on today, as he made what he called his $2 million decision when walking away from sort of a $2 million revenue business was the smartest thing he'd done. Now, he's a repeat B2B SaaS founder. He's currently the CEO of Jeeva AI, which automates AI-powered SDR agents, which help teams 2x their pipeline in half the time. But interestingly, he started at 17. He co-built a radiology tool that Indian government adopted nationwide. So he's got a fair bit to share. And what I really like is a smart way he's gone about pivoting. So I'm going to jump straight in. And Gaurav, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, JJ. I'm excited to be here.
I mean, when we were chatting before, I found out that was quite interesting about you, is that you regard yourself as a pattern spotter. Perhaps you could go into a bit more about that.
Yeah. JJ, when I first started my first startup, one of the things that I found very unique about myself, and I don't know if you've seen this movie Dune. There used to be a book, Dune, as well. And one of the things I loved about this was this guy could see what's happening in the present and kind of predict the future. And I don't know why, but I almost felt that that's one thing I'm uniquely really good at. It's like the worst skill set in an interview. If you go, imagine I'm going for an interview, someone's like, tell me about your technical skills. I'm like, yeah, I'm really good at pattern recognition. They'll be like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Right? But I really felt that as a founder, it's very useful because I was able to do pattern matching better than others. And it helped me with win customers really well, build stuff that people want. I was able to predict like the best hires, even from the beginning. And I think that's something I'm really good at. I wouldn't be the best marketer. I'm not the best sales guy. I'm not the best interviewer. But I feel that's something that maybe I was born with or maybe how I grew up. But I do believe that's an important skill set. And a lot of AI is pattern matching too. If you think about it, a lot of the AI systems are predictive analytics, and that's how they predict what the next word would be. And that's how they auto-complete. And I feel that's a very important skill set now.
That leads very nicely into like sort of what we're here today to talk about, which is the idea of like when you can see the future, when's the time to sort of stick, when's the time to walk away? Because like you started you've got quite a cool sort of founding history, and you started when you were 17, and like, but this is the first business that you got to a size was an AI, but you stepped away from it. So perhaps we could tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, totally. JJ, one of my faults, and I don't like giving up very easily at all, actually, which I feel can also be a bad thing. And the funny thing is, and I'm sure you're seeing this Silicon Valley news everywhere, where the covenant has always been you go down with the ship, but I'm sure you're seeing this more often than not, where founders are taking the easy way out and giving up way too early. Maybe they have something, maybe they don't. Yeah, I'm not to blame anyone. So I'll give you my story, JJ. But I started my first startup right after high school. We built this kind of machine learning application for radiologists that became a lot more. But we started with just doing some pattern recognition on reports to automate reporting. Obviously, much easier problem now with LLM, but it was a very, very hard problem to write radiology reports just by scanning the images. And the reason I got into this was I never wanted to like do this as a living, but I never wanted to be working for someone. I hated that idea. I came from a blue collar family, lost my dad to cancer. Mother, we grew up very poor, so I always had that entrepreneurial zeal of doing something for my family, for myself, which obviously my mother just wanted, that I take an easy job and get health insurance. But I started coding at 10, built my first video game at 12, and I had a co-founder, or like one of my best friends. Her parents were radiologists, and she was just doing some work for them, and I started helping her, and it became a startup idea. We actually skipped college. We took some of our best friends, ran this bootstrap company for several years, and were able to profitably sell it. Everybody, all the founding team, I'm very proud of this, that they were all able to buy houses, and we had a really good exit. Completely bootstrapped, but what we were doing is everything from helping the radiology team automate 90% of their work. But towards the end of the journey, we did actually a lot of really good work in using ultrasound machines to be able to predict cancers even. So we were hardcore machine learning engineers because ultrasound machines are actually cheaper than CT scans or MRIs to even predict certain kinds of cancers if you just use some machine learning on top of it. So I always thought that that's going to be my career. Obviously, I'm doing something very different now. And then I had the opportunity to come to the US, JJ, and I start my second company, which is still going. So it's just a different idea. It's the same startup. And we started with this idea that when we were working with doctors and hospitals, we got really good at ingesting data. So we came up with this ridiculous idea. We were like, we're going to build, and we were too early for ourselves. So imagine in 2019 or 2020, before the AI LLM wave, we were like, AI is going to be super hot. We're going to build a central data layer that any company can use. So imagine if I go in and I can put this layer that takes ingest all the data a company has. So if I go to United Healthcare, if I go to British Airways or Horizon, I can say, give me all your data, like everything in Salesforce to HubSpot to, let's say, your in proprietary databases. We're going to create this natural layer that AI agents will be able to use, and you'll be able to do a lot with it. So imagine like a customer data platform which now Salesforce has, but it's not as smart, or a Snowflake version of data warehouse that can actually build stuff that can normalize all the data you have, help you make predictive decisions. Because we were taking terabytes and terabytes data from hospitals. At that point, it sounded like a very audacious idea, a very good idea, but I think we just took on too much of it. Even it's still relevant, but it was just too hard to do pre LLMs. And then what ended up happening is we ran it for 5 years. We even raised some funding on it and just couldn't find product market fit. We would become almost like a consulting company. Like first, it was very hard to go to Horizon and say, give us all your data. So you have to go through like 500 security tests. Once you do that, then the data is so different that it's really hard to normalize it and make it something that's very predictive. We basically would just do a lot of consulting work. So like late last year, like it was December last year, JJ, I actually went back to my board and I said, we worked extremely hard. You guys know we never give up, but it's time to call it quits. We want to return capital, whatever we have left, and do something else. And they asked me like, what would you do? And I said, me and my co-founders, we've been working on this like sales intelligence tool. And what it does is very simple. It basically just scours the internet, finds lookalike customers, and builds like a profile, and can then write a personalized email and a LinkedIn message to them. We've been using it for prospecting because JJ, we had to go from 55 people to like 6 people at one point, right? Only just a core founding team. So we were trying to do a lot of work with a small team. So we're trying to automate away everything using the GPT 3.5 APIs. And we called it R2D2, actually, because we're Star Wars nerds. And then what ended up happening is, I said that that's what I'll start to build. And my board was like, look, we love you guys. Just, keep going. We'll back you up. And so we pivoted to R2D2. In January, we got a cease and desist as soon as we started. We were like, we're going to sue you. We were like, we don't want to fight with you guys. We changed the name to Jeeva AI, and we've grown like crazy, right? It's like 9 months. We have 300 enterprise customers, 10,000 users now. But it came from a pretty hard pivot in this year.
So just as a recap of that journey, so you've got sort of the successful first business, which you exit.
Yeah.
Puts everyone in a good place. You move into second, you give it a serious amount of time. You've got a really good founding team you believe in. You've kind of ridden journey, taken money. You've got a 65, but then you're feeling like there's a lack of product market fit. You've had to dial back the team.
Yeah.
What was that like, having to go to your board and go,
yeah,
I'm not sure this is the route.
Yeah. So it was extremely hard, JJ, because just as a personality, I think I grew up in a very gritty, blue collar family. So, at least what I feel like it's also a bad thing. It's not just a good thing. Obviously, like you can have, like an Elon Musk like personality who never gives up, right? Or at least like love him or hate him. That's kind of his thing. I feel like sometimes it's smart to like give up on ideas quickly. I get too attached to things. So I think that's something I can work on. But long story short, I feel it was very hard for me because uh, one of the things that I really struggled with is I had a lot of like, you can call it imposter syndrome, or just thinking that maybe I'm not running it or executing it as well, right? Like maybe if someone else was doing it in my shoes, they would do a better job at this, because they would be able to sell better, solve security issues better, standardize things better. I always had that constantly. So that's why I think I prolonged it sooner rather than later. But then other pivot challenges, which everyone who's pivoting probably understands this, and I'm sure you've coached a lot of founders through this. Another pivot challenge I had was that one pivot is like you kill the company, you start a new one, right? That's like, okay, that's really, that sucks, but have a clean break. The hard thing for us was, and as we were talking right before the call, we already had revenue. Like it's not that we didn't have any customers. So we had funding, we had raised money from Sapphire Ventures, which is the third largest VC in the US. They've backed companies like Dropbox, I think Box, they have, like they have LinkedIn, right? Like they'd be huge, like it's a massive, like it's a great logo to have. And then I had like some of the best VCs who had backed us. So we had really good like social proof. We had really good customers. Like Verizon was one of our best customers and big customers. I had like tons of other really enterprise logos. We were at 2.5 million in ARR. So we were profitable, right? Like we were close to like break even. Obviously, it's a lot of time, effort, and money, but it wasn't that we were like dying. It was like that. It's like it's kind of like that decision you make on a, like you have a bad employee that clearly is bad. Everyone knows they're bad in the company. Then you have someone who's really, really good and good attitude, easy to keep. Then someone in the middle who's either too good and not a great fit attitude wise, or who's really bad but just hustles 24/7. Like, what do you do with that person? That's kind of was what was wrong with our company. We had like it was working, but not enough to like gain some velocity and actually be like a venture backed business. We were like adding customers, losing customers, adding customers, losing customers. So we are kind of stalling, but we had a revenue base. So it was a very hard decision because for a couple of reasons. One was I had a small team, JJ, and they stuck with me. They've been together. Like some of the guys I work with, guys and gals I work with, they worked with me for 10 years now. So it's not like a college kid, like, my first startup. They work with me, they understand me, they've been very loyal to the company, to me. So they truly imbibe the vision. They believe in this, they believe in the idea, and they're basically like pirates. They wake up every morning saying, we're going to change the world, we're going to do this. I have a really good board who stuck by me because, plenty of times things were not going well. We had like no revenue growth, completely stalled, or a lot of challenges that were happening in the company. They were like, don't worry, we believe in you, keep going, keep going. So now I had to go back to them and basically say, look, I have sold you on this vision A that I love and I believe in, and I had sold you on it. You believe it, and now is not working. By the way, we want to pivot to an idea B that have no fucking freaking idea if idea is going to work or not. But I want you to believe me and the vision to now believe in this idea B that may or may not work. And we actually have to prove that it works before we do anything about it. So that was extremely hard, so JJ actually did something good and bad at the same time, where I decided to divide it into two teams. So I built some OKRs and I said, you have team A, keep the lights on. You're not going to raise more money on a new idea that we don't know if it works. We're going to, be good to our shareholders. We're going to keep the cap table as is. Keep the lights on. You mean you got to serve the customers we have so we have revenue coming in so we don't freaking die. And the second team is like, find product market fit. Let's go and get 5 customers to pay us or 10 customers to pay us and get them successful to prove that this new idea B actually works. And we had a lot of experiments going on with A to see whether they're still light, can we still make it work with like some of the new models that were coming in and stuff. So that's what we did. I think we did the right thing. We didn't instantly kill A. We didn't instantly just double down on B. We actually were very methodical on how we proved product market fit, lack of product market fit on vision A, and product market fit on B. And also we're able to keep the two teams motivated enough to not like, kill each other or do each other's job. So that's kind of how we run the pivot.
It's really interesting. So you had this kind of good to great, like you had a good business, but it sounds like you weren't convinced it could become great. I like this idea of splitting the team into two, kind of like red team, blue team, almost effect. How did you? Two questions. One is how much testing had you done of option B? So what became the new business? But by the time you spoke to the board, and how did you manage this kind of internal like two team to make sure that like team A didn't feel like they were the sort of oh, we're just taking care of the boring stuff. He doesn't really believe it anymore.
Yeah.
They're doing all the exciting stuff. That's what he really cares about.
Yeah, totally. I actually read a lot of kind of books about it. There's a famous entrepreneur, Brian Chesky at Airbnb. He has a lot of podcasts around this, but he talks about where Airbnb was going through a crisis after they IPO'd. They had just raised money. They were valued at 50 billion. Then coronavirus hit. And we literally was around the same time that we started our first business. So I kind of was listening to it. So I had this top of mind for me. And he talked about this idea of creating two teams. And he had to let go of 90% of the people because Airbnb went from lost 90% of their shareholder value within, let's say, 60 days or something. So he basically said he created two teams where one team was in charge of like keeping the current business going. Second was like in charge of like making sure that just they can just 10x everything that they already have. And he talked about these two team concept, which was like he read this somewhere, and I might be butchering exactly where it was, but he talked about like like when they had concentration camps, even like talked about like old like talking about World War times. He talked about the people who made it basically had this purpose, and what he talks about is like, and when they interviewed those folks who survived the war, he talked about what kept you going, and it wasn't like they believed in the country or they just had a sense of purpose. They had a job. They believed in the purpose they had, and that's it. So I was like, I was very fascinated by the idea, and I was like, I got to give the team A, like the keep the lights team on. That's why the objective was keep the lights on. It's a pretty solid purpose. Got food on the table for 6 folks for some more time. And the new team also has to prove something that, hey, the work we have done should not go to waste. We want to carry on the team, the legacy, be good to our shareholders, and be able to get something out of this. And so that team was also so very in charge of it. And actually, like I think it was a natural division because some of the engineers went to team B because to experiment with stuff, and they became like the salespeople as well. And the CS folks, like we had a couple of customer success folks and one operations person who was in charge of like keeping the customers happy. So it was a natural division, but obviously both had really strong purpose, and they're still with us. I have all 6 of them still working in the company. They're all very happy doing different things, but it was a very interesting transition. And I think I was inspired by Brian Chesky on like not letting a crisis go to waste almost, and executing.
So today, have the two teams become one? Does the have you fully stopped doing the old stuff? Are you all in on the new business? How did that transition then work?
Well, yeah, great question. I think as soon as we found some escape velocity, and it was pretty quick for us, like within a few days, we realized that, hey, people want this, they want to buy this, they will pay for this even if we don't have anything. We were literally manually sending them lead lists and doing manual stuff for them, and they were pretty happy with that. So we were like, okay, there's a market here, there's an opportunity here. No one has clearly become the market leader on this. Very different model than what we're doing. Like right now, we're all PLG, kind of like the cursor or lovable version in our space in sales. Before we were like enterprisey, like Salesforce, come and implement. So it's a very different muscle for us. But we found our market fit pretty quickly here, and we were like, yeah, let's off to the races. We actually wrote to all our customers that we're sunsetting. We actually, I don't think we have anyone left now, but we gave them 6 months that we're gonna sunset till July. Well, it's free. Don't pay us. If someone wants money back, let us know. And we only had a few like large enterprise accounts. Like I think we had 50 by the time we decided to sunset, and we did a really good job with them. We told the board that we're going to be, all hands on deck with these guys as well, help them transition to something new, something different, and that's what we did. So we did a really good sunset here, and that's what we did. But now, obviously, we have different pods and different teams. JJ is still like 2-3 person pods, 15, 16 people now, but still very small team. I think we overgrew in our last startup, so I've kept like everything super tight right now. And I think people can do a lot more with AI now, right? So I think that was one of the conversations we were having before this. Is I think you can do a lot more, and keeping a small group of folks is actually much better. If Nvidia can be a $4 trillion company at what is it, like 3,000 people, it's just crazy, right? It's like, why can't we be $100 million company at, let's say, 30 people, right? I think that's kind of what we're shooting towards.
So are you going to be wearing like a Jensen wearing leather jacket soon? Is that the next move?
I believe in a lot of things he talks about. Like I've been through, and I think we can have a very interesting coaching conversation here, right? And I would love to hear your perspective. But I've been through like the first startup. It was very gritty. It was basically everything founder led. I was like what is it? Founder mode. Everything was founder mode, right? Yeah, I'm sure you already heard that now. And then for my second startup, it was all like VPs and execs and very buttoned up. I was like, I'm gonna create the next scalable thing. I think this one is more balanced. I have some senior leaders, but I'm very involved still. But I feel if I have to do it all over again, I'd probably pick the first path more than anything, the Jensen Huang path, basically. At least that's been my learning. Like, stay super involved, stay close, right? I think Brian Chesky had this quote where he says, like, great leadership is presence, not absence. And I think, yeah, it's okay to be present, and you don't need permission to be present and give your opinions because you're the founder, and, it's kind of super interesting. So I don't know what's the right way. Only time would tell, right, JJ? But I feel like, at least from my experiences, what I've learned, I feel like I'm running this company more founder led, everything, like being super involved in everything as of now.
I think my take is I think building the company around you, which just doesn't mean you're doing it responsible for everything, but I talk to our founders a lot. Often you get advice like, oh, you should give away this, or you shouldn't be doing that. It's like, but if something you really enjoy or something you're really good at,
Yeah.
ultimately you build your company with you at the heart. Because I think it's worth acknowledging that founders should be the heart of their business. So that means if you're the world's best salesperson, why would you step away from sales? Or if you're really good at the product side, why would you step away from product? It just doesn't make any sense. So I think there's a danger in going, oh, well, you're a founder, you get to a certain stage. Step one is you do this. Step two is you do this. It's like, I just don't think that's the reality. It's like, I think everything's individual and go, what do you love? What are you good at?
Yeah.
And build your company around that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's very true. I think this is perfect feedback. What you said exactly.
So to jump back into your story, it feels like you did get this positive feedback on team 2 quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I had a guest on the show, Dimitar, before, and he stepped away from his business, or was at a similar stage, like 2 million ARR. He actually had a second fundraising round on the table, but again, just didn't have that visibility of that sort of takeoff that he needed. And his view was like, you're kind of having so many chips. Like if you've got, he actually stopped and started something different. But and the idea what you did of taking your team and refocusing them, because you've got that history, you've got that thing. Like, it's not like it was, you didn't take something that was a part of the product and move around it. You kind of bet the ranch on something. Well, you didn't bet the ranch because you kept the lights on.
Yeah.
I just think it's very interesting how you just went. You took the positives of the team and the knowledge and the effectiveness and tweaked it.
Exactly.
What was behind that?
Yeah, it was a tough decision, JJ. I think I had a really good team and I had a really good board, actually. Like, I have really good investors. I always hear these horror stories of a lot of founders who hate the investors or hate the board. I actually love my board. I have really good board members. I have a 3-person board, small board. I love these guys, and they've been with me for a long time now. And I think one of my investors, Mark Mullen, he's at Bonfire Ventures. For all the founders, if they're fundraising, they do seed, one of the best seed investors in the US, and they do UK deals as well all the time. But I've worked with him now, it feels like 10 years now, or so, like a long time. And I love this guy, so I feel like it's going to be really hard to like find those folks again. And, obviously fundraising is easy now, right? For second, third time founders, for especially folks in AI, it's like, I don't want to be cocky and things change all the time, but I know I can be confident that I can go and raise a $3, $4, $5 million round on a pitch deck, right? Or probably on some product, easy product. But it kind of, then I'll have to like go interview a lot of folks and go find like the best board, go hire a team again. And I already have that. So that's what you need, right? I think it's like team traction, right? Market. So we don't have market, but and obviously traction, we were getting some early signs, but we had the team. So I think I bet on that for sure. And I was like, let's take that. And we had already parted ways with everyone we didn't want to work with, right? I told you that we had actually done like a dump exercise, which is super hard, but I got rid of everyone I hadn't worked with before, and it was very hard. Obviously better for them. We gave them really good exit packages so that they can go find something new, and they probably earn a lot more, right? Because startups don't pay that well. But I had a great strong core, and we just thought that we'll pivot away. The story that inspired me is Slack story. So Stuart Butterfield, who's the founder, has a really good story at Slack where they had something similar. Actually, his story is really interesting. He's done two pivots now in his career. He had like a social media startup that became, now I'm forgetting the company, but like a photo file sharing application or a photo sharing application that Google bought. And then for a second startup, he had a gaming company for 7 years, and they toiled away. They raised a lot of funding. They just couldn't build anything, and they had built Slack internally where they were doing it internal comms. And as soon as that, you know, they pivoted, had the same team, 30 or so engineers in Canada. We pivoted with them, and boom, Slack blew up. And it's like I think they were at a billion ARR and acquired for 30 billion. Now, I think internally at Salesforce, they're probably doing maybe 30, 40, 50 billion ARR out of like, so they're like 30% of Salesforce's revenue. So I think obviously still doesn't, startups are so crazy, JJ. You never win, right? Like, like they can still lose to Microsoft Teams if you think about it after so many years of work. And but that's how the markets work, right? You can always go up and down, and trajectories change, and you never really win, right? Like it's like a journey. Um, uh, so that's kind of what was really interesting. I think Slack story was like I read that somewhere and it stuck with me, and I was like, yeah, I think I have an opportunity to do something similar. It's a really cool story too. When I talk to investors and customers, I tell them, hey, we're working, because a lot of folks are like, you're brand new, you just started. I was like, no, like actually this company has been around for several years, feels like a freaking decade now that we've been grinding at this thing. And I think that makes customers feel really happy, dude, that we're just not going to give up that easy.
Because that stuff is such a good one, because it was like an internal tool that they knew, and that was the thing. For you guys, how long had you been using this sort of AI prospecting tool?
Not that long, maybe 3 months max. So we did still have a lot of building afterwards. Like, it's not that we had a ready product that we were just selling. We were selling the dream still. Like it almost felt like day not day zero, but day one. Like it didn't feel like we had something that we had been quietly building for a long time. We didn't come out with a finished product. I think if I were to go back and do it again, I would probably spend a couple more months building and chill out a little bit. But I was very anxious to get this out, and so we had some like early customers who just loved the vision, hated the product, and then we had to like fine tune it. I think the best decision we made was like in March we decided to go PLG, which was like product led growth, and we were like, we're gonna make the product so good that people just love it, and that becomes a growth engine. That was very painful because we went up in revenue, then flatlined again, and then went down, and then went back up again. So it was kind of like a risky bet, but we then over invested in product this time.
So, because that, I mean, just maybe we'll dive into that quickly. This sort of shift in product growth. What practically did that mean for you internally in terms of where you allocated your spend, maybe team focus? Like, how did you make that shift?
Yeah, very, very different budget spending and focus. So if you think about, if there's a traditional B2B startup, and we are still a B2B startup, but we're a prosumer startup, which is like, if you imagine OpenAI is the best analogy, you have the API product and then you have ChatGPT. So we're trying to be ChatGPT, but then we hope that people buy our API product, right? That's kind of what we're doing. But when we started, we were the API product. Like, we were selling to enterprises. In my last startup, and 2 startups in a row. That's what I'm really good at, which means building an SDR, BDR team, building a sales team, building an implementation team, revenue engineering, RevOps functions, having that muscle. And this muscle is very different. It's basically more packaged, pirate metrics like awareness, acquisition, retention, revenue, referral metrics. How much are people converting, influencer partnership, Instagram, being on Meta, being on TikTok, being on YouTube all the time, doing a lot of social sharing. Like I joke about this, but I feel I had done 5 LinkedIn posts before this startup in 5 years, and I do like 5 posts a day now. Right? It's kind of like, it's a very different muscle, and so we just had to like reallocate funding from core engineering, customer success, sales, to move more towards like marketing, product, and like super fast iterations, get it out. What's good is like, we get people. I'll give you an example. We just closed a deal called Bark.com. It's fresh on my mind. It's a small deal, $24,000. They're a $1 billion company out of Australia, and this is our first deal in Australia, so we're excited about this. But with this one sales guy, who signed up for free, loved the product, told his team. Within 2 weeks, went from like a $20 user to a $24,000 deal for us. We're just hoping that we see a lot more of that, and that's kind of what. So it's a very different muscle than I reaching out to the VP of sales at Bark, talking to them, getting them excited, then having multiple conversations, and at the end getting buy-in from the team. So just a different kind of channel, different metrics, but very exciting stuff nonetheless.
But it doesn't, product work doesn't mean only working on the product, hoping you get word of mouth. It sounds like very much sort of active, much more the marketing side, more than the sales side.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's more marketing. It's how do you get the product to do certain stuff that people can do it. Like there's a guy called Sean Ellis who I love following, and he was the first growth hacker. He coined the term growth hacker, but he talks about this like awareness, acquisition, activation, retention funnel, which means that how can you get people super excited about the product you have? And what he talks about awareness is that don't focus on serving the whole market, just focus on serving who you want to serve to. Are you in front of them? Are you in front of the 100,000 people who care about this instead of 100,000 people? And how quickly can you get them to sign up on your product or whatever action you want them to take? How quickly can you activate them, like using it, getting some aha, some value? And does that activation or aha turn into a referral? So if you can get that flywheel going, like ChatGPT is a great example, right? I heard from ChatGPT from my brother. He's like an early adopter of tech. As soon as it came out, like day second, he was raving about it. He was like, I use it all the time. I was like, literally just launched yesterday. Like, where were you using all the time? And so, but that's the flywheel, right? Someone got in, someone got super excited about the product, got activated quickly, and that's kind of how we do it. In enterprise sales, activation happens at the end almost. It's like everything happens, right? You basically get the customers, you acquire aware, you get them aware, whatever it is, you get them to pay, you get them to commit to an annual deal or multi-year deal. And when everything is done, then you focus on activation. So this activation has to happen right at the beginning. I think those are like at least nuances I'm learning about this market.
And that must have been quite, as you say, if your personal skill set and experience was like really good at building sort of really slick sales teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was that for you? That must have caused that giving a bit of control. How did that feel? And what drove that shift from sales led to product led?
Yeah, totally. It's different. It's very different. Also, like we were very engineering focused before, and we still are now. And even then, our engineers were like, okay, we got to be really SOC 2 compliant, GDPR compliant. We're going to be very thoughtful about this, very methodical with QA. We're going to get everything perfect, all the iterations done. It's all about performance. It's all about enterprise readiness. And now it's all about speed. So even from an engineering perspective, it's all about, can we deploy daily? Can we get tickets out daily? Like we measure like how many tickets can we get out? How quickly can we deploy? So we deploy 7 days a week sometimes, like at least 5 days a week, basically. So that's also big muscle change. But in terms of like sales speed, like it is it's different though. It's kind of like I miss it sometimes, like being on a lot of sales calls and just like closing deals. Like there's like a certain dopamine hit. And founders love that, right? That like dopamine hit you get from closing to a different muscle in marketing. Sometimes marketing can be like over. There's no, it's not as black and white as sales is, right? In sales, you win a deal or you lose a deal. In marketing, 1,000 things can go wrong for you to like burn $1,000 on Instagram and keep what happened ready to go. Who knows? So it's a different muscle. I think it was a hard shift, team wise, psychology wise, but but we're still very sales focused. We want to make sure that we talk to everybody. Like one of the things we do differently is we try and talk to all our people who sign up every day. And it's hard because we get like 500 signups a day now. So we have to like reach out to everybody. And let's say out of them, 10-20% want to talk to us. So we have sales guys who just talk to users to learn and what can we make better? How can we serve them? And also try to like squeeze out any enterprise opportunities. Like, hey, is that like, are you part of a team? Are you building a team? Can we help you there? So I think that's kind of our focus here. So we haven't lost our DNA completely, but we just have, it's not the highest priority for us.
It's really nice that you use the word DNA there, because if we look at this as a pivot, going back to all the things you've said so far, like you had an existing investment, you had an existing board, an existing company, you had an existing team. Yeah. But you've pivoted into a new idea, but also a new way of working. Like Like you changed your production methodology, you changed your sort of customer acquisition methodology. So it feels like it's quite interesting how you've taken some very strong foundations that change quite a lot at the same time.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's like the same team, different muscle, different way. Sam Altman has this quote which I love, and I think it was Arvind who was another guy talked about this from Perplexity. But they have these quotes which was like, he was like, we were like a research lab, and like Sam Altman says, we were just a research lab. We were doing research, and all of a sudden we became a product company, and we had no idea what to do. And they're like, we had to completely repivot the team because he was getting a lot of flack about. And the reason I talk about him is because Alt Capital is an investor in us, which is a fund that Jack Altman runs, Sam's brother, and Sam's an LP in it. So we spend a lot of time with Jack, and obviously love these guys, great product. And so Sam has this code, which is basically like when he was getting a lot of flack for all the ex founders leaving, and all the top researchers were leaving OpenAI. He was like, yeah, we used to be a research company, but now we're a product company. And so we had to realign the team and everything. And yeah, some people are not happy about it, but that's life. Right? It happens. Change is part of the game. And so I think that's kind of what happened to us. Exactly. We were like a totally enterprise buttoned up company, and now we're like this high velocity team.
Mm. So if it is like the founders who are listening, if there's one thing that you would share with them that you think they could do like today, they take one thing from this, what would you say? What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's a very 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 good question. Maybe I'll give like one. Maybe I'll say two things because I'm having a hard time. I'll say like one philosophical thing, and then I'll say one tactical thing.
Mm.
I think philosophical wise, one thing that I wish somebody had told me, and I'm sure you may have a lot of new founders, and new founders can be at 20, and the new founders can be at 60, right? So it doesn't mean like I think it's always hard to be a new founder, no matter how experienced you are, right, JJ? I think to all the new founders, my feedback is just believe in yourself. Like, just have faith and have tremendous self belief. Like you have to almost constantly take. You have to take a lot of risks. You have to take a lot of good decisions, bad decisions. Just make the decisions. Be decisive. Believe in yourself. Believe in your gut. And I wish I did a lot more of that early in my career. I do a lot more of that now, but I wish I did it at 18. I feel like I would be, much more successful in the work we did or have bigger impact. That would be like the philosophical side of things. And from a tactical perspective, I would say that no matter what you're doing, just focus a lot on activation and measure it, try to like figure out what activation means and get to that aha moment for that user, whatever that is. It could be like, I'll give you an example. Like, there's this new soda that's trending now. I think Pepsi bought them for $1 billion called Poppy in the US. I don't know if they're also in the UK now, but it's called POPPI. And it's just a soft drink, but it's like 20 calories. It doesn't have any fake sugars. It's very low in sugar and content and stuff like that. But they have this really funny advertising as soon as like when you get a can, it says like the way that it talks about 20 calories is like very uniquely positioned. Maybe people can search for it. But I feel like, what is that aha? And then it's not actually the taste. Taste is not that great. Like it's not as good as like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever. But I think that's like their mark. That's like their aha. When people drink it, they're like, oh yeah, it tastes half as good as a Coke or a Diet Pepsi. But then it's like supernatural, like only 3 ingredients, and then you're like, wow, that's their aha. That's so. How do you get the user to that aha, and how quickly can you get them to that aha, no matter what you're selling? I think that's been like a lot of learning for me. I wish we had done that early in my career too, in my or other startups. I feel that would be a tactical advice that if you could focus just on one thing around your product or your service, just what is that time to that first delightful moment, and shorten it, squeeze it down. I think that would be like that's kind of what I would urge founders to focus on.
Amazing. Well, Jay, this has been a really fascinating chat.
Thank you, AJ. It was awesome talking to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and I just think just to sort of sum up, I think that what I've taken from it is that you can have a good business. Just letting you know, is it going to be the great business that you want? But that shift, I think, it can feel like quite binary. I either shut it down or I need to keep on going. And I really like this kind of third approach of like, actually, maybe what I've got in my existing business it's not just a product that's has value in there. It might be the relationship with investors. It might be the relationship with your team. There is value, and pivot doesn't just mean product. It can mean style. So it's deciding like what you're keeping, what you're not.
Actually, spot on.
Amazing. Do you look forward to catching up again soon?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, JJ. Excited to be on. And also, thanks for the opportunity. Anyone listening, if you guys have any questions or doubts, then I'm on LinkedIn. You can search for my name. But also I'm G@Jeeva.ai, just in case. I always respond to emails. Would love to connect with other founders as well.
Perfect. Well, that was a really great show today. I really like Gaurav's insights around how to pivot and how to pivot smartly. Join us next time on The Peer Effect. See you next Wednesday. And if you've got any questions in the meantime, anything you want us to answer, reach out at hello@peer-effect.com. See you next week.